has played in shaping Hollywood, both creatively and financially, as we know it today. Rom-coms were key to launching the careers of an entire generation of A-list actors, from Julia Roberts to Tom Hanks to Hugh Grant to Sandra Bullock. They offered the few consistent opportunities for female writers, directors, and producers to make films in one of the only genres that was, more often than not, specifically aimed at women. And all the while, the movies themselves served as a gut check on modern love, offering a revealing historical document on singledom, couplehood, and everything in between. And When Harry Met Sally accomplishes all that in the scope of one movie. Over the rom-com boom of the 1990s and 2000s, before the film industry shifted toward a model that prioritized massive franchise-generating blockbusters that cost hundreds of millions of dollars to produce, the rom-com showed that a different world was still possible, a world where the stars still had more to do than the stunt people, and where a chase through a crowded city street could end with your soulmate giving a teary-eyed speech instead of a punch from a supervillain. It was all going so well, with romantic comedies connecting with audiences and adding up to hundreds of millions in box office grosses for the studios that produced them, until the early 2010s, when a combination of bad choices, bad timing, and bad films converged, like the smarmy ex who shows up at just the wrong moment and ruins everything. But even in the bleakest time for the rom-com, a happy ending wasn't far off. Hollywood is an industry that moves in waves and trends, and at the time of this publication, the romantic comedy is looking as strong as it's ever been. Before we dive into 30 years of rom-com history, it's important to define what a romantic comedy actually is. As mentioned in the author's note, these definitions are often fluid, but here goes nothing. Too often, a movie is called a romantic comedy just because it centers on a female protagonist. See the premature eulogy for the romantic comedy written by the New York Times critic A.O. Scott in 2008, which appreciatively cites In Her Shoes and The Devil Wears Prada as some of the genre's better specimens, while failing to note that neither movie is actually a rom-com. Just as often, a movie isn't called a rom-com when it should be. See the filmography of Paul Thomas Anderson, which contains two romantic comedies, Punch Drunk Love and Phantom Thread, that are frequently and snobbishly mislabeled as dramas instead. These debates are best had with friends over a bottle of wine, so for the purposes of this book, I have kept my definition simple. A romantic comedy is a movie where, 1, the central plot is focused on at least one romantic love story, and 2, the goal is to make you laugh at least as much as the goal is to make you cry. If that sounds a little prescriptive, you can always look at individual cases and apply the Donald Petrie test, named in honor of the director who suggested it to me. If you removed the love story from this movie, would you still have a movie? If the answer is no, it's a romantic comedy, like Petrie's own rom-com How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, a movie I'll cover in detail within these very pages. If the answer is yes, it's a comedy with a romantic subplot, like Petrie's Miscongeniality, a movie that falls just outside of the scope of this book. So, order your favorite meal. I hope you enjoyed as much as Sally did. Pour a Bridget Jones-sized glass of wine, and let some romantic comedies into your heart. If you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling you'll find that love actually is all around. It's just different. It's a whole different perspective. Harry Burns, When Harry Met Sally. Chapter 1. When Harry Met Sally, and When Rob Met Nora, and changed the course of rom-com history. If historians had to trace the modern romantic comedy's origins to a single time and place, they could hardly do better than the Russian Tea Room on 57th Street in Manhattan in the fall of 1984, when Nora Ephron and Rob Reiner sat down, as writers and directors have done for decades, for what would turn out to be one of the most remarkable lunches in Hollywood history. Despite the chaperone-like presence of Reiner's producing partner, Andrew Scheinman, who had befriended Reiner in 1974 after he kicked his keys down a grate at a tennis club, which Reiner recalls as so cute it was almost like a romantic comedy meeting. This was essentially the professional equivalent of a blind date. Ephron, the daughter of 2 Hollywood screenwriters and a successful magazine writer herself, was coming off a prolific prior year, in addition to the publication of her first novel, Heartburn, which was widely and correctly understood as a thinly fictionalized version of her breakup and divorce from Watergate journalist Carl Bernstein. She had co-written the Oscar-nominated script for the biographical drama Silkwood, making her first big splash as a